Okay, we're here at the International Conference on AIDS in Cape Town, South Africa, 2009, and we're here with Pauline Londeix, and she is with ACT UP Paris, an organization that's been rather useful and resourceful in doing a lot of good work over the years in keeping the toes to the fire and pounding that fist, and that's always really good to watch in action. I call it, at the conference, I call it the symphony of the conference, the music that keeps it vibrant. So you had an action yesterday, and can you tell us about that? Give us, because we have it on tape, we're kind of like, how did this happen? How did you see the need for this action?
We're at the IAS conference that's a therapeutic conference mostly, and there is many booths of Big Pharma here. Mm-hmm. And the idea of the march of yesterday was to highlight the fact that Big Pharma here talks, and scientists here talks about new drugs existing now, and as second and third line, for instance. But the reality now is that there is less than 30% of people around the world who have access to treatment, and mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, there is only access to first-line treatments. So the new drugs, the one that are less toxic, that are better quality drugs, are not available here. Mm-hmm. And that's just unacceptable. Mm-hmm. And that's why yesterday we wanted to put stress on this. We wanted to highlight this in order to ask the Big Pharma to make prices drop, because the leaders of the G8 country, for instance, says that we are in a recession, and because we are in a recession, we can't fund the global fight against HIV/AIDS anymore. We can't increase the global fund, for instance, to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. But the reality is that, for instance, the second line drugs could cost something like 10 times more than the first lines, and we need more money to make people switch to second line drugs when they need it. So that's really a shame that people in South countries can't have access to quality drugs. So that's why we wanted yesterday to demonstrate against Big Pharma. The idea was to call the developed countries, governments, to protect, to support southern countries who want to issue compulsory licensings, and to promote generic versions on medications. We wanted also to really ask Big Pharma to make the prices drop significantly.
Mm-hmm. Just kind of background here, the first line drugs that we're talking about are not first line in our country. They're more or less first line here, because they're no longer being, almost hardly being used in the United States anyway.
Yeah, for instance, in France, there is 80% of people on second line drugs, and in Cameroon, there is less than 2% of people on second lines. So it makes the difference.
But when you have the ability, when we have like funds that are PEPFAR or whatever the funds are, they can afford treatment for one person at first line, 10 people at first line, but technically, according to the existing money, only one person at second line, what we call second line, the more expensive drugs. We really were good about getting the prices to drop on those earlier drugs, which, like you say, are a lot more toxic or more toxic. But these other drugs are still at the, reduced price, but not anywhere near affordable enough, is what we're saying for the people in the developing world.
Absolutely, and that means that, for instance, to switch people to second lines, countries, governments in southern countries have to find some extra money to fund the switch. So that's why everything is done in some countries, in many countries, to make the time of people to be switched on second lines the last as possible, the lately as possible.
And I know that this, I don't know how familiar you are with what's going on. There's a lot of trials that we're discovering, you know, dosing with one drug rather than multiple drugs. And that is proving out somewhat useful for some people. So that will maybe save some of the money. But still, we need to have a way to either manufacture locally those drugs at a very cost-affordable price, or have the companies that manufacture them in whatever countries they're manufacturing them at a more affordable price. Either way, it's got to be a project that makes that shift for the people, so they don't have to pay 10 times that price of the first line. So, are there any other areas that you wanted to talk about as far as activism from ACT UP Paris?
I think that the march of yesterday and the press conference just after was wanted to address a message to the leaders and to the drug companies, people working for drug companies, that really we need something to be done very quickly. That's really an emergency, because very soon there will be a lot of people dying.
So we have people that are now on first line, failing first line treatment, who have nothing to go to.
Yeah, exactly.
So those people are basically off treatment, and this is not acceptable as far as humanly acceptable. It just isn't. I appreciate your input, and I appreciate your being here and doing the good work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pauline.